Hi, I'm Catherine. Welcome to this podcast, which is straight out of the heart of London. So a lot of international lawyers can get a little bit confused about tort law because in common law systems like us and the USA, tort law is quite a big thing, and it's always helpful for international lawyers to know about it and understand it. This podcast is about a particular area of tort law, negligence, and I think that's probably the biggest area of tort law that you need to know. It's about something unimaginable that happened on the London Underground. So you will get the details of that, but not too much, because you wouldn't want too much detail. But we're going to look at the legal implications of what happened regarding liability, payment, and whether the lady that this happened to in the middle of London deserves the £25 million that she's asking for. So take a look. Rachel, are you ready for the London Underground?
I am. Let's start.
Good, because that's the topic for today.
Oh,
We've got
interesting.
a massive legal case. A
Oh,
lady claiming £25 million.
wow.
It's connected with the London Underground.
hmm
But before we talk about it, I'm going to ask you a few
Oh,
questions.
I hate this.
I know, but it's not about law. It's just facts
Trivia.
about the London Underground. So, do you know what name Londoners call it? Because they do not call it the Underground.
No, I know that it's called the Tube.
That's it. It's called the
Yeah,
Tube. And that's because of the shape of the
yeah.
very oldest tunnels. So, if you want to fit in London, you say, "Excuse me, where is the nearest tube station?"
Yeah.
People will think you live there. Um, when do you think it opened? Because it is the world's oldest underground system.
Oh, like
Begins with
I
18,
was gonna say like the
if that helps.
1800s.
It is the 1800s, Rachel, but that's not good enough. Come on.
Oh,
Oh,
1850.
it's 1863.
Oh,
So
I wasn't too far off
you
then.
weren't
That's
too
good.
far away from it. Um, the station with the most platforms,
hmm
which means the station where most tourists get lost, is the one that's famous for Sherlock Holmes.
hmm
What's the name?
Baker Street?
Baker Street, yes. You sounded like you didn't know, but it's Baker Street.
Yeah.
And the newest section of the London Underground system was only opened in 2022. Do you know what it's
Mhm.
called?
I think I do. I think it's the Elizabeth line, isn't it?
It is the Elizabeth line. Just
Yeah.
before
The
the
Jubilee,
Queen,
wasn't it?
it was the Queen's
Yeah.
Jubilee. It was her anniversary of being
Yeah.
Queen. So they named part of the London Underground after her. I'm not sure that's a huge honour, but that's what
No.
they did. So the London Underground has grown over the years, and
hmm
it has what we call 11 lines.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to change lines on your journey, and that's the bit I don't like doing. So we've got the Circle line, the Metropolitan line, the Victoria line, and in total there are 272 stations.
Oh, I'm exhausted thinking about that.
5 million passengers every day. So we need to explain
hmm
how we get to a £25 million claim from one woman against Transport for London, TfL, and they are the people who run and manage the London Underground system.
Yeah.
Before we get into it, there's a very famous phrase from the underground
Hmm.
that we should explain.
Yeah,
3 words. Do you know what those 3 words are?
I do. It's mind the gap.
Mind the gap.
Yeah.
Now, the gap is, I don't like the gap. The
No.
gap is when you're getting on and off an underground train, you
Mhm.
stand on the platform, the train comes in, the doors open, and you have to step over quite a big gap.
It's substantial.
It's substantial and I don't like it. So
No.
I'm extremely careful. But in case people are not being extremely careful,
Yeah.
there's a constant recorded message,
Yeah.
mind the gap. So what does mind mean in that context?
Just make sure you're paying attention to.
Yes, pay
Make sure you know
attention.
where you're standing.
Yeah, be
Um,
careful.
yeah, be careful. Keep an
Really,
eye on.
yeah, they should say, be careful of
Yeah.
the gap, but they don't. They say,
No.
mind the gap. And it's so famous, you can buy t-shirts and key rings and fridge magnets that say mind the gap because it's the sound of London, really.
It really is. Yeah.
Millions of people hear it every day. Now, before we get to the horrifying £25 million claim,
Hmm.
which is connected with the gap,
Oh
um,
no.
we've got a really sweet story. We've
Okay.
got a nice story.
I like this.
Yeah, and it's not connected with law, it's
Okay.
just a nice story. So, very quickly, a man named Oswald Lawrence, who was
Hmm.
an actor from the Golders Green area of London,
Hmm.
recorded the original Mind the Gap. He was an actor, so it was beautifully clear. Um, and then sadly, Oswald died,
Hmm.
but his wife used to go to a station called Embankment Station
Hmm.
just so she could hear his voice after he died. And then Transport for London changed the message.
Oh.
It was a new voice. So she campaigned and said, bring back my husband's voice, please. And
Yeah.
they said, no, but we'll put it at just one station for you, Embankment Station. So let's listen to Oswald Lawrence's widow talking about Mind the Gap.
But Transport for London replaced the message until they heard about the widow's story. Here's Sonia Jessup.
Mind the gap.
His message has been heard by millions, but few Londoners would have known the man behind the voice.
Mind the gap.
Oswald Lawrence, an actor from Golders Green, he could once regularly be heard on the northbound Northern Line. He died 5 years ago, but his widow Margaret often went back to the one station where his voice was still played.
If I had a journey that could possibly go via embankments, I would do it that way. I just loved hearing his voice.
Rachel, what do you think? Beautiful story?
So sweet.
You're so
So
sentimental.
sweet. I really am. I am one of those really sappy people.
You're sappy, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not. I think he's died. Get on with life. Have some tequila. Buy a dog.
Oh, Catherine.
I know there's no hope for me. So now we've had the lovely story. I'm afraid we have to go to the legal case.
Yeah.
Oh, Rachel.
Is it
This
awful?
lady is claiming £25 million,
Yeah.
but I don't think anyone listening, if they could choose, would say, yes, I will have her experience in exchange for 25 million.
Yeah.
No amount of money could make it worth what happened to her.
Yeah.
So, Sarah de Lagarde is her name.
Okay.
And she talks about what happened to her a lot because she doesn't want it to happen to anyone else. So
Yeah.
she's happy, I think, for us to publicise her accident.
Yeah.
Very high powered lady.
Oh, okay. I love that.
She was something like, before the accident, head of global affairs at a big
Wow.
city investment firm.
Wow.
And you can tell that Sarah did well in life because her journey home was the Northern Line.
Yeah.
Now that's
Okay.
where the money is in London.
It is.
If
Yeah.
you're getting on the Northern Line to go home, you've done okay
Yeah.
financially.
Yeah.
Her stop should have been Camden Town.
Okay.
Name the famous musician from Camden Town.
Oh, pass. I know Camden Town for the big food festival that it does.
You Philistine. It's Amy
I know.
Winehouse.
Oh,
She used to
not my
sing in all the
favourite.
pubs. No, oh well, I love her. And she used to sing in all the pubs in Camden Town. Anyway, that was Sarah's stop to go home. But she'll regret this for the rest of her life. It was 10 o'clock at night. She'd been working late. She fell asleep on the
Oh,
train and she
we've all
woke up.
been there.
Well, I told my son this because he works in the city as well, and he said, I have fallen asleep. His stop is Highgate. If you fall asleep, you wake up at the end of the line,
Yeah.
which is a station called High Barnet.
Yeah.
And High Barnet is actually, I think, above the ground. The train comes out of the underground and up before it gets to the end. I don't want to describe what happened to Sarah and what
Okay.
the basis of her claim is. Shall we just play the clip of her being interviewed and listen in her own words
Yeah,
what
I think
happened?
that's a good plan.
Let's go.
This happened just a year ago, and I just remarked when you walked into the studio in the advert break, just what a remarkable cover it looks like you have made in that year. Because what happened to you was horrific and harrowing. Let's not, mince words about it. Take me back to that night. You'd fallen asleep on a train. It was wet. You slipped. Pick up the story.
Yeah, so I slipped on a puddle on the platform and crashed against the stationary train, fell through the gap in between the train and the platform. I injured myself badly enough to break a nose and my 2 front teeth. And then the train departed and took my right arm with it. I was conscious throughout and I shouted for help and nobody heard me. And the second train came into the platform and claimed my right leg. I was still conscious after that, still determined to make it home because in my mind's eye, I could see my 2 daughters and they were telling me, Mummy, you have to come home. What are you doing? And at that point, somebody heard me.
Okay, Rachel. I'm sure we all agree, having heard that, 25 million, you can keep your money and I'll keep my arm and my leg, thank you.
Yeah, awful set of circumstances.
Nightmarish. So for lawyers, the question here is about the duty of care. It's our old friend, the duty of care. Do you remember we talked about the precedent case in the Law of Tort?
Yes.
What was the name of the lady who got a drink of ginger beer with a snail in the bottom of the bottle? Can you remember her name?
Mrs. Donahue, wasn't it?
Oh, Rachel, you're almost a lawyer.
Oh,
Mrs.
I'm
Donahue.
so happy.
Mrs. Donahue started this area of law, the duty of care. She went to a cafe, her friend bought her a drink, and in the bottom of the bottle, there was a snail. The mysterious friend.
Mysterious friend.
And that established a principle in the Law of Tort called the neighbour principle. And the neighbour principle is you have to be careful of the people around you, not to be careless, and cause them harm or loss because you weren't careful. Now, that very first case was a duty of a manufacturer of drinks to the end consumer.
Yeah.
And obviously the law has developed and developed as more people bring cases to court.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no doubt that Transport for London owed, OWED, owed a duty of care to Sarah de Lagarde.
Yeah.
The question coming to the High Court in London is how much duty of care? Was this just an unfortunate accident,
Mm-hmm.
or will she get her 25 million?
Yeah, absolutely.
And she speaks about avoidable mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened to Sarah was she fell in the gap.
Awful.
And because it was 10 at night
Yeah.
and it was the end of the line, the driver quite naturally took a 15-minute break or a 10-minute break. And all the passengers got off the train and went home, and no one heard her shouting. Now, is that unfortunate, or is someone liable for that? That's going to be the question before the court.
Mm-hmm.
So let me tell you some of the points that Sarah makes
Okay.
that are going to be the basis of her claim.
Mm-hmm.
10 at night, end of the line, no staff in the station to hear her shouting, because of course there are ticket machines. In the old days, you had to buy your ticket from a man or a woman.
Mm-hmm.
You paid your cash, they give you your ticket. Not now. There's, you just swipe.
Yeah.
And if you don't buy your ticket on the London Underground now, and I guess most of the world's undergrounds, you can use your bank debit card when you go through the barriers.
Yeah.
I was in central London not very long ago, and my granddaughter thought I was like a cave woman because I was looking to buy a ticket, and she said, "No, Grandma, you just tap your card." Of course you do. Of course you do. So that means you don't need the man or the lady in the ticket booth. So no one's there, and the driver's having his 15-minute break.
So scary.
So part of her claim, I'm sure, will be Transport for London are negligent in that if someone has a terrible accident, there's no one to hear you.
Okay, yeah.
Does that seem fair to you? It seems like a fair point.
Yeah.
I don't know how the court will decide that.
Yeah, it does seem like a fair point to me, but
Just from even the point of view of her being a woman and just being safe, even if this terrible thing hadn't happened to her, for the safety of young girls and women in general, I'd quite like someone to be in the station.
yeah, I do agree with you actually, yeah.
Rachel, this second one is so typical. When the emergency services arrived, for safety, the power had to be turned off on the train tracks, or the doctor and the paramedics might have been killed.
Yeah.
And no one knew the telephone number to ring to turn off the power.
Oh,
So-
that's not very good at all.
Yeah. So as Sarah was lying on the tracks, just trying to stay alive, she was waiting for them to find the telephone number of who to call to turn off the power.
That's awful. That is a severe lack of foreplanning.
It seems unbelievable, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm sure her barristers will say that is negligence on the part of Transport for London. If it's true, everything's an allegation in a legal case. An allegation is like an accusation, but in a civil case. So it could be in court that Transport for London say that's actually not a true fact. it'll be up to the barristers to find out what the facts are there. Anyway, she was on that track for 1 hour before the doctors and the paramedics reached her. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
That's so terrible.
It's unimaginable, isn't it?
It is. Just being in that level of pain and
fear,
waiting for somebody to help.
In the dark, you know.
Yeah, it must be awful.
So another thing she said is every London Underground station has constant CCTV.
Mm-hmm.
So you're being filmed all the time.
Yeah.
But she said, what's the point of that if no one is watching it?
Yeah, she's got a point. She has got a point.
It does feel like she does, yeah. Now again, that's an allegation. Mm-hmm. Transport for London might produce evidence to say, well, someone is watching it.
Yeah.
But it was dark. The platform was wet. It
was the end of the line.
Yeah.
I think that'll be a big talking point of it.
Yes. And all of these things for Transport for London are what we call mitigating factors.
Yeah.
Now, a mitigating factor makes the negligence less.
Yeah.
So they might say, well, a member of staff was watching the CCTV, but because it was so dark and it was a rainy night and the train is very long, we just didn't see her. That was just unfortunate.
Yeah.
We don't know. Be very interesting to watch this in court.
Oh, absolutely.
When it comes to court. And her fourth point that I've heard Sarah making, no sensors on the track. She argues that if there was some kind of sensor on the train track that alerted, there is an animal or a human on the track, this isn't train, beep, beep, beep.
Yeah.
That really should be done, given that there are 5 million people.
Mm.
And what usually happens, Rachel, is people do end up on the track all the time.
Yeah.
I read about a case that happened 4 years ago, and it was in the middle of London, not the end of the line. Someone fainted, probably because of the heat.
Yeah.
The person who fainted was okay.
That's good.
Yeah, but no, it's not. They fell forward, and when they fell forward, they knocked the person in front of them into the gap. Now, the point Sarah makes is that happens quite often, and members of the public are always brave. Someone or a small group always rescues the person from the track. And one of her points is, why does it have to be members of the public?
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
So, yeah.
And she talks about Transport for London's profits and how perhaps some of that profit could be spent on increased safety features.
Yeah.
Now, we should say here, 5 million people use the London Underground every day, and the majority of them do not fall into the gap.
Yeah.
There's a yellow line, and they tell you, always stay behind the yellow line and you will be safe. And I've never once in my life crossed the yellow line. I really haven't.
Yeah.
So, in general, London Underground is very safe. People visiting shouldn't be nervous, but you should listen to the announcements and stay clear of the yellow line.
Yeah.
Sarah is asked by the same interviewer how she would make travel safer. Let's just listen to what she says in response to that.
What do you feel needs to be done to make travel safer?
Well, I did get that question, quite often, and it's really hard for me to say because I'm not an engineer. I don't know how.
It shouldn't be.
But in my thinking, it's not just a money question. It is the fact that we are led to believe that CCTV is being watched live. It is not. Could there be an AI system that monitors that? Why are there no sensors on the tracks? Every car has got a sensor, but not the tracks. How come there's no staff in the stations? That
Why are the
shouldn't
basics
happen.
not done for if somebody falls on the tracks? There should be
A training-
something in place.
Yeah.
I mean, presumably there is. Perhaps the staff there that night just didn't know, but you feel like that should be such a priority.
And the thing is, I'm led to believe that this was a freak accident, an unfortunate series of events. But it's not true. I have, since the accident and since I've spoken publicly about it, received hundreds and hundreds of messages from people who said, oh, this nearly happened to me. And I was lucky that a member of the public fished me out. And it's always a member of the public. And that leads me to the point where change needs to happen.
So, we can't give our listeners the outcome of this case, Rachel, because it's just started.
Yeah.
And a judge at the High Court in London has scheduled it to come to court in early 2027.
Yeah.
So that gives the barristers a good period of time, more than a year,
Yeah.
about 18 months.
Yeah.
To find their expert witnesses, to get all their statements, to prepare their case. And maybe when the case does come to court, if they don't settle, it could be a settlement before it comes to court. Maybe we can do another podcast and tell everyone the result.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just to end this, if you come to London, have a brilliant time, but be absolutely sure to mind the gap. That's it for today. See you soon, Rachel. Bye-bye.
Bye.